Good morning. Happy Friday. Happy New Year to everybody. Welcome to From the Nosebleeds. I'm Joey Gunnar here today with Andrew Mason. Mace, Happy New Year, man. Thanks for joining.
No problem. Happy New Year to you as well. 2026. Here we go.
2026. Hopefully the Broncos can start with a win here in 2026. And of course, it has to start with their most important game in the past decade. I was sitting up last night thinking of what could have been a more important game in the past 10 years, and I don't think there is one. There is no game that matches up since the Super Bowl back in 2015 to this game this weekend. The Broncos win this game. They secure the #1 seed. They win a playoff game automatically because they don't have to worry about the wild card. And the best part of this is they're going up against not Justin Herbert. They're going up against Trey Lance this weekend. Should be a huge win for the Broncos, but of course, any given Sunday, Week 18, anything can happen. Mace, do you think, is this the most important game that the Broncos have played in the past decade?
It would have been if the Chargers had won last week, and this was for both the division and the #1 seed, and the difference had been the Broncos being the 1 seed or being the 5 seed and having to go on the road. Because of that, I'm still going to say the most important game of the last decade was last year in Week 18 when it was do or die, win the game, go to the playoffs, or go home, because the Broncos had not been to the playoffs in so long. So once the Chargers won last week, or lost last week to the Texans, and the consequence of losing meant only dropping to the #3 seed, I'd have to say the importance of this game dropped just a little bit. It dropped below the last year's season ender in terms of the consequence of losing.
Well, yes, I can see that. And, worst case scenario, the Broncos are sitting at that 3 seed, but we're talking about a game that is a playoff win. This game counts this weekend as a playoff win, basically, if the Broncos could pull it out, because then you got a bye week. You're going to the divisional round hot and rested. That feels more important than a game where it's like, hey, you're playing the Chiefs backups and you win this, you're into the playoffs. They've already secured the playoffs. They've already secured the AFC West. Now we're talking about a team that has a real opportunity to go to the Super Bowl if they win this, because instead of having to play 3 games, you're only playing 2. I mean, last year, yes, it was a huge win in Week 18 up against the Chiefs. You win that game, you go to the playoffs for the first time in a decade. This year, though, you win this game, you win your first playoff game, basically, in over a decade. So I see what you mean there, and that was a real turning point game. That was a game where you can see that this is a more real team, but there have been Super Bowl hopes for this team all season, and they can come down to this game this weekend. What are we seeing going into this game? With Justin Herbert sidelined, is this a great opportunity for the defense to really get back into a groove, get some momentum going into this bye week, rest up a little bit, hopefully? And I'm keep saying bye week because I've got a lot of hopes that the Broncos can win this game. But if the Broncos maybe struggle a little bit, is that coming from the defensive side, or is this a great game for them to get back and tuned up a little bit?
Well, the defense, really, they kind of got back in the groove last week against Chris Oladokun and the Chiefs. I mean, the Chiefs only had 95 yards before that last drive of the game. The only reason that game was close was because you had 2 short field scores for the Chiefs, one that was set up by an interception and one that was set up by a long punt return. Otherwise, that game is not close at the end. So the defense, on balance, it's in the right ballpark. What it needs to do specifically is generate takeaways. I think that it's one specific thing that this defense needs to do, and that's where its point of emphasis has been. Because the Broncos, they're down tied for 25th in the league in turnover margin at -5. There have not been many Super Bowl champions that have won with a negative turnover margin in the regular season. Now, some have done it recently. Both Chiefs champions of the 2020s have won it all with a negative turnover margin in the regular season. The 2015 Broncos won it all with a -4 regular season turnover margin. So it can be done, but it's in the single digits. And to tell you kind of how remarkable this Broncos team is and what they're doing with a negative turnover margin, with 13 wins, only one team through 16 games ever had more wins with a negative turnover margin than the Broncos. That's the Rams of 2001 with 14 wins. So like the Broncos are they're punching above their weight, but they've in terms of what they're doing despite being in the negative, and most of this negative has been because this defense, the one thing that is missing is it's not getting takeaways. They're middle of the pack in interceptions, but they are dead last in forcing fumbles at only 11 forced fumbles this year. And then they've had some bad luck, only recovering 3 of them. Typically, you recover about 45% of your opponent's fumbles. So they've had a little bit of bad luck there. But the thing that it's surprising when you have a team that's sacking the quarterback so much, generating pressure so often, and not generating takeaways. So sort of a goal for this defense, for this game, and going forward is to start to turn some of that pressure into actual takeaways. And if they can do that, then they probably have the final piece of their puzzle, and probably an essential piece, because although they were able to limit the Chiefs in terms of yards, and they'll probably be able to limit this relatively limited Chargers lineup in terms of yards on Sunday. We've seen the Jaguars, the Packers, Washington, that they've been able to march up and down the field and generate some yards. And the key against the Packers, for example, was get a couple of takeaways, get some red zone stops. And as you get into the postseason, and you may have to face offenses like the Jaguars again, like the Buffalo Bills, the equation may look very similar in that you have to get red zone stops and get takeaways in order to win the game.
Yeah. So with that being said, you're looking at this defense, hopefully generating some turnovers and, getting some red zone stops. So they've been good at all season. The red zone has been a great shining piece of this defense all year, but the defensive turnovers, forcing those, who's going to be the X factor? Is it Cooper? Is it Benito? Is it Hufanga? Is it Greenlaw? Is it somebody, one of the defensive backs like a PS2 getting an interception this game? Who can we look at and be like, they've got to turn up, they've got to generate some, turnovers and really get the offense back on the field as often as we can get it?
Well, Huff put it on himself. He says, "Hey, I've dropped some interceptions, so I've got to make those plays." But I think really, in terms of forcing fumble, I don't think it's one person. I think it's a collective. It's whoever's getting to the ball, and whether that's getting to the quarterback or getting the ball carrier. And I think it's also swarming a bit, because oftentimes that ball is coming out with that second person coming in. Like the first person is holding up the ball carrier, the second person is coming in and punching it out. So I really don't think it's something where you can say it's on Cooper or Benito. It's an X factor, one person per se. It's the collective. It's everybody's got to be in on it.
Yeah, so that defensive front needs to be attacking, getting straight to the quarterback as fast as they can. Love that. Definitely a game where we're going to be looking at this defense to generate some of those stops, big turnovers, big sacks coming in crucial moments. And I guarantee that a lot of those are going to happen. This is not a game that people are really looking at the same way they've looked at past games, where you're looking and saying, this could be another close game. This could be a really hard fought battle. I haven't worried about that at all. There have been multiple games this season where I'm like, this needs to be a big win. The Broncos need to get going and generate offensive drives as quickly and as efficiently as they can generate defensive stops. This is not one of those games. This is a game where the Broncos just need to go out and play their style of football and win. Win, and you get the first seed. That is all that matters. No style points need to be accounted for here. This is not a game where you need to really be feeling a big win on either side, because it's not going to happen from the Chargers, and it's likely not going to happen from the Broncos the way that they've been playing. I'm not expecting a huge 2-score touchdown and a field goal win at all. But if the Broncos, and we need to talk about this, as unfortunate as it may be, if the Broncos lose this game, it will be one of the biggest fumbles at the end zone I've ever seen. It will be one of the most heartbreaking losses I will ever see. What are the ramifications if the Broncos find a way to lose this game? Because it's not very likely that they do, but it is possible any given Sunday.
Most likely a rematch with the Chargers the following week. If the most likely set of results transpires on Sunday, then that would mean the Chargers in the 6th seed, the Broncos in the 3 seed, and then they'd have to turn around and play each other in the next game. And that would be fascinating because on the one hand, there's the old cliche that, it's very hard to beat a team 3 times in a season, and that would favor the Broncos. But if the Chargers were to somehow win this game, at that point, you'd start thinking, okay, what's going on? What does Jim Harbaugh have on Sean Payton? Like that, because at that point in the Harbaugh-Payton one-on-one coaching matchup, Jim Harbaugh would be 4-0 against Sean Payton, and that's the thing that starts, you start wondering, like, oh man, what's going on here, right? So that's the interesting thing about this is that, and we'll know if that's a possibility based on the early afternoon games, because if Houston wins and Jacksonville wins, which are the most likely outcomes, we would know that if Houston wins and then New England wins in the late game, we would know that first of all, we would know that the Chargers would be a 6 with a win, and then we would know that the Broncos would be a 3 with a loss, assuming New England won, and that would be and I mean, I'm not sure if you'd want that or not. I mean, so you wouldn't want. I mean, I don't know. I don't know that you obviously don't want to lose the bye, but I think it's the whole thing. Do you want to face him for a third time? And third time's the charm. You finally break through. I mean, that's the following week around here, if that transpired, would be extraordinarily uncomfortable. Let's put it that way.
It would be chaos. It would be chaos.
Yeah.
And honestly, yes, if the Broncos lose on Sunday, I would want that rematch so badly. I would want it as quickly as possible. I would be begging to bring the Chargers back here, but also I would be so nervous. I mewe talking about a team, and this is all hypothetical. If they lose this weekend to Trey Lance and company with the Chargers, then we, first of all, have yet to see a Bo Nix win against the Chargers. And then the week after that, they're coming right back to Denver with their real quarterback one in Justin Herbert. Yeah. I would be so uncomfortable, but I would also, cinema. That would be as cinematic as it could get, a storybook show for the Broncos. And I don't think that the Broncos would win that wild card game. And we would be talking about one of the worst fumbles at the goal line in recent NFL history.
Or you talk about, I'll just go to ancient Broncos history here. 1997, when they went all the way and won Super Bowl 32, it was referred to as the Revenge Tour because they beat the Jaguars in the wild card round after losing to them in the previous year's divisional round. They beat the Chiefs in Kansas City in the divisional round. The Chiefs had beaten them in Arrowhead that November. They beat the Steelers in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh had beaten them that December, and they defeated the Packers in the Super Bowl, and the Packers had beaten them in December of 1996, but it was revenge games all the way up to the Super Bowl. And so think about this for a moment. If the Broncos fell back into the number 3 seed somehow and got the Chargers in round 1, you could get revenge on them. And then if the seeding held in this scenario I talk about, you'd go to Jacksonville in the divisional round, and you'd have a chance for revenge on them in a rematch of the game a couple of weeks back. So, there's a little bit of a historical echo there, perhaps. So
there's got to be a possibility that the Bills could fall in there too. We're talking. There's got to be a possibility of somewhere where it's like Chargers, Bills, Jaguars. And they get
Imagine that possibility if it goes Chargers, like when Chargers beat Jaguars, Bills, or something like that. Chargers, Bills, Jaguars. That would actually be.
I mean, it'd be amazing.
Yeah, it would. Well, it would probably in that circumstance, it would go. It would have to go Chargers, Jaguars, Bills, because the Bills being the lower seed would go to, in that circumstance, would go to New England in. For the Although no wait, no, because actually no, the Bill well.
Yeah, well, the Jaguars would have a higher.
Yeah, the
seed.
Bills would be because the Bills would be the Bills would be the number 7 seed. So actually, in that unfortunately, then the Broncos couldn't face the Jaguars, so they would have to face the 4-5 winner. So the Broncos would face the Texans or the Steelers. So there's no revenge there. So it couldn't work out quite that way with the stair steps, unfortunately. So in that
Russell Wilson was on the Steelers for a second there, so maybe we could think about it that way. But
my gosh,
it would be cinematic, and it's fun to think about. And honestly, it's a little terrifying to think about. But hopefully, we don't have to worry about the cinema. Just beat the Chargers this week, get that first round bye. Go into the playoffs in that divisional round, get a win there against whoever the matchup is, and we could be talking about the Broncos in the AFC Championship this season. So crazy to think about. I mean, it's really good to go into a new year excited about the Broncos, excited about what they can do this season. Thank you, Mace, so much for joining. It's always a pleasure talking to you. We'll be back on Monday talking about hopefully this huge Broncos win. Everybody get ready for it. It's going to be a lot of fun. Total cinema, as we've said, to watch. But thank you all for joining. Happy New Year. Mace, always good to see you. I will see you all on Monday. Until then, y'all have a great rest of your day. Bye, y'all.